Today, on A Word on Westerns, Marion Ross.
The Lone Ranger appeared on Happy Days, too, but it wasn't Clayton Moore. It was John Hart.
No. We were very disappointed we couldn't get him. But I was so thrilled to be on The Lone Ranger. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the fact that he kept continuing that persona, how wonderful.
Welcome to A Word on Westerns, where we talk to the greatest Western creators of yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Happy Days are finally here on A Word on Westerns.
Oh, that must mean that our guest today, Marion Ross, is going to be talking about not just Happy Days, but her happy days making Westerns.
On Rawhide with Clint Eastwood and on The Lone Ranger with Clayton Moore.
Now, that's amazing because I was doing a tribute to Clayton Moore and I had a couple of people that were invited to talk about Clayton, including Dawn Moore, his daughter. And I'm thinking, wow, these shows were made so long ago. They started in the 40s and ended about 1956. Who am I going to find? And I'm going through and I go, well, he's dead and he's not around and she's gone. And then I went, Marion Ross. What a nice connection.
Yeah, still with us.
And not only still with us, but she is hysterical. She's so funny. She wasn't just a wonderful comedian and made people laugh on Happy Days, but she made me laugh telling me her stories about her upbringing and what made her so aggressive about becoming a fine actress. And the stories about the Lone Ranger with Clayton Moore got me really chuckling.
It was a funny interview. She definitely knows how to get an audience going.
Well, it was interesting because of the connection. I thought, well, Marion Ross, she had John Hart on Happy Days dressed as the Lone Ranger because he was the Lone Ranger.
Boo.
Booze.
Boo.
Well, he wasn't Clayton Moore, and no one ever will be. But Marion's story about shooting that episode is fascinating. And I think all of you out there, if you like Westerns, you like comedies, you like to laugh, and you like the Lone Ranger, and Clint Eastwood, don't forget Clint, this is the show for you.
That's a lot of people, so this show is probably for you.
Well, let's get to it.
All right.
It's nice to see you, children. You've all turned out so well. I'm proud of you. Can you believe it?
Well, it's hard to believe that it's been so long since The Lone Ranger premiered in 1949, and you were so lucky, I think, to be a part of that. And it was early in your career. How did you get a part on The Lone Ranger?
I don't know, but I was under contract to Paramount when I was 23, but Audrey Hepburn was just signed at the same time. So that was the end of me. You know,
well, she didn't get the chance to do The Lone Ranger, though.
No, but so then I got fired, finally, out of my, those 7-year contracts that you get. So I remember doing The Lone Ranger. I thought that would be good. And I was a very serious actress. Very serious.
In that episode, you were the daughter of a preacher building a home for orphaned kids. There was a doctor who wanted to kill your father in this episode. The Lone Ranger came to your rescue and your father's.
I know. So it was at the end of the show when I said, who was that masked man? And I never got to thank him. And the thing that interested me the most was all these cowboys, and I was an actress, very serious actress. And all those men would play poker all day over there, wait for their chance to go on. I thought, oh, I can't believe it. Also, I was having my period at the same time, so I used to get these terrible cramps. I would faint. I would go in the bathroom. I would faint on the bathroom floor, and then after I would lay there for like an hour till I recovered, and then I would come and acting some more. That's what I remember the most. I remember that bathroom.
Well, those early shows like that, from what we understand, they shot them so quickly, too. Several episodes at a time.
Do you think, how many days do you think it was?
2 days, probably.
Really? Right. No, and Clayton Moore was, of course, perfect. Tonto was perfect. Mm-hmm. Everybody was. It was a lovely, lovely experience. I was just, if you see the show, I was so serious. Took it so seriously. So I'm honored to be in that. It's one of my treasures.
Well, you should be.
To have been on the Lone Ranger.
Let me ask you about the character of the Lone Ranger then. When you were growing up, did you listen to it on the radio too?
Well, I must have, but I'm from Minnesota, so we're not Westerns.
Oh, they didn't have radios?
We did. Well, we certainly had Lux Radio Theater.
Oh, yes.
And Jack Armstrong shows you how old I am, because I'm 90, almost 91. Woo.
After this brief but important message, we'll tell you about next week's exciting story of the Lone Ranger.
So radio was very, very important. But I had a Canadian mother from Saskatchewan, and she was Irish, and she said you couldn't be anything. So I thought, I will, Mother, I will be. So that's how I got all my drive, was from my mother.
How did you first decide to become an actress?
Just because I had to be so special and so different from anybody else. So,
well, it worked.
By the time I would go to the library and read who's who of famous people. These were encyclopedias like this. And they were born, and then now they're famous. I think, what happened? How did they get like that? So then I would read the biography of Helen Hayes. I would read the biography of Noel Coward. And these are people that were acting when they're like 9, 10. And I thought, I got to get going. I got to get going. You see, I had a crippled brother. I'm trying to think. There were 3 of us children. I was in the middle, my crippled brother, and then my sister, who was lovely. So because of the drive, where do you fall in the family line? Where'd you get that drive? If you got that drive, that never left me. I had to become somebody.
And you did.
Excepting along comes Audrey Hepburn, passes me right up.
Oh. How could she have done that to you?
God.
Oh. Well, she did not have a long-running sitcom like Happy Days like you did.
Do you see what a benefit that was? It's like, my God, what a present.
Great. It was such a wonderful show. And you were everybody's favorite mom. And even when the show started to change, you were still the strong woman.
My part got better and better. My part at first, my lines, Tom Bosley, who had won the Tony on Broadway, he had all the lines and then the Fonz came in, took that away from him. Here's Ron Howard over there, jockeying, And as the years went on, my part, because mostly my part was, oh, Howard. or like, oh, Richie. Or, oh, Joni. That was my part. And they would say to me, Marion, read here at the table, read all the other characters that will come in later. So, my heart is pounding, and I read the shit out of those. So their heads would snap around because I'm auditioning all the time for those writers, and they would begin to write better, and better for me.
Smart.
Yeah.
And the Lone Ranger appeared on Happy Days, too, but it wasn't Clayton Moore. It was John Hart.
No. We were very disappointed that we couldn't get him. But I was so thrilled to be on the Lone Ranger. I mean, and the fact that he kept continuing that persona, how wonderful. You know, it's like the Fonz at a certain point didn't want to be the Fonz. And he tried everything to break himself from it. Now he's gone back to it again. See, Clayton Moore was so smart in building a lifetime character.
What is it about the character of the Lone Ranger you think that has made it so lasting?
He was so honest. You trusted him. There was no falsehood anywhere. It's just straight ahead. So you couldn't see a flaw. You didn't care that he was terribly human. He didn't have to show that side of him because he was perfect. I mean, here you've got Superman. He was another kind of Superman. Oh, Lone Ranger. Who was that masked man? And I never got to thank him.
Who'd you say that masked man was? Well, he's the Lone Ranger. Well, what do you know? A Lone Ranger.
I remember a Death Valley days where it starts off, you're in jail behind bars and has some great scenes because you were in jail because they thought you had poisoned your son.
I don't remember.
That's what they always would say, guilty of a crime. I don't remember.
And I was in Rawhide?
Yes, 2 Rawhides.
Right.
You were in one with Karen Sharp.
I was.
Yes, you remember
she's
that
a good
one?
Friend, right?
Yes, no,
right.
that was a good episode.
And we had one where we're in a stagecoach, and it's run amok and over the hillsides, and we're in this stagecoach. And you know, it's like it occurred to me only afterwards. Next time they ask you to do that, say no, because you can get killed in a thing like that. Yeah.
Well, those Rawhides were different than a lot of the other Westerns on TV because they actually shot outside more often than others.
Shot outside.
You were in the one with Karen Sharp where Victor Jory played your father. You were one of 3 daughters, and he wanted to marry them all off. So Clint, Rowdy Yates, and Charles Gray wanted you, and Clint wanted Karen Sharp. I don't understand
why. Where do you store all this information? In your in your head?
You know, people ask me that all the time.
It's amazing to me.
That's all I know, though.
Because I was there.
I don't know. But it's fun. It's interesting for me.
It is.
You were the one who got to be in that stagecoach that almost turned over. And I'll remember that now.
Yeah, right. So, and I think I was on top of a horse. I think I was sitting. Clint Eastwood is holding me. I'm unconscious. He's on top of the horse. He is holding me in his arms like this. And, of course, the sound man goes with like this with the clapboard. And the horse goes,
Well, luckily Clint was a good rider.
I
did he just throw you aside or did he hang on to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's some action. So you did stunt work with Clint?
Well, yes.
And in the stagecoach.
Yeah.
Did you get extra pay for that?
I should have. Right. And Karen Sharp became a good friend, too.
She's terrific. She was under contract to John Wayne. Karen was. She did a lot of Westerns, whereas you were doing sitcoms. She was doing Westerns.
So I never did and met John Wayne. I never did any of those. But I have spent, from the time I was under contract to Paramount, all those years in this business. Isn't that something? I am retired now, so don't offer me anything. Because half the time now I say, what is that line? What is that? They say it's very simple. And I said, I know, but I forgot it. What is it? What is it? So I think I've reached that stage. But
well, let me ask you something else you may not remember. There was a pilot with Phil Silvers and Jack Benny called The Slowest Gun of the West. I had never heard of it, and because you're our guest,
Yeah.
I watched it.
All right, folks, now listen, I ain't a talking man. But Elsie Mae, he is my woman, and anyone who says different will answer to my two friends. My shooting knife.
And some dancing scenes with Phil Silvers, and she made out with one of the best bad guys, Robert J. Wilkie. You're kissing Robert Wilkie? He scares everybody.
Bob Wilkie? Yeah,
Yes.
but I kissed him. Wow, but I remember that also. That was the most. I'm such a fair maiden. I'm such a lady, you know. So this was a bunch of guys. Phil Silvers was, yeah. I just can't tell you how uncomfortable it was.
Well, I'll tell you why. One of the reasons is you're talking about all those guys that surrounded you there. Those guys were all the famous bad guys. You had Jack Elam, Lee Van Cleef,
Yes.
Bob Wilkie,
Yeah.
just one right after the other, and they were all outgunned by Phil Silvers.
Right.
And you danced with Phil. There was a square dance sequence that you were dancing. You were engaged in the film.
Can I get a copy of that? Because it was alive. It was kind of like a cinescope or a live big. It was a big.
That's what I
CBS.
thought until I screened it.
Yeah.
And it was shot on film with a laugh track, which is really disconcerting. And I know that the first season of Happy Days was single camera with a laugh track, and you all switched for doing like a play a week
to
with
do
a
it
live
3
audience.
camera with a live audience out there.
How did that change the way the show
Well,
was?
excepting the minute the Fonz came on the set, they would just start screaming, screaming, and you couldn't hear the lines or anything. No, it was great because Tom Bosley was from Broadway. He was an actor, and I was trained on the stage. Most of us, Ron Howard wasn't, but most everybody that came to work on Happy Days had been trained. They were stage actors. We made use of that audience. We fed back and forth.
I heard that the laughter and applause as different characters would enter would last so long that the script writers would be deleting pages from the script to make it come out on time.
It was like going to a party every Friday night.
That's great.
Unbelievable.
How fun.
And so we lasted about 11 years.
And
we had a softball team.
well, Gary Marshall was a big sports guy too.
I
wasn't
played
he?
Rover. Like Rover, get over there, Marion. Get over there. Over there.
I thought you meant roll over Rover, but
No, but I could hit. I could really hit. I was good. And in fact, I have my own bat with my name etched into it. So I would hit, and I could get to first base. And I would run like this. So they were not going to hit that final lady, so they would overthrow first base. I would get on.
no. Well, who did you play? What other teams were they? All in the Paramount lot?
Media guys, and we would play before a Dodger game. We played all over the U.S., which was a good way to promote Happy Days. We would play in a pregame with media guys, and they thought we were kidding. No, we're actors. We're never kidding. We're never kidding.
Everybody seemed to have wanted to work with Gary Marshall. He must have been a lot of fun.
He was wonderful. In fact, one of my first memories is being on the show, and you got the table read, and this apparently wasn't going too well. And he said, "Will you go to your dressing room? I want to talk to you." I thought, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get canned. So he came in and he said, "Daddy isn't working for you, is it?" You know. So, and I thought, I didn't say anything. I just nodded. And then he said, "I'll fix it." He took the same joke, turned it inside out, and the beats go boom, 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 a little more in my rhythm, and then it worked.
Great.
But I had a moment I could have gotten fired.
Well, he had 5 or 6 shows on at the same time. Just really brilliant. And another show you may not remember You played Dutch Schultz's wife.
I did.
On The Untouchables.
I did.
Yes, you remember that.
I do.
Oh,
Vividly.
good. Yes.
I do. Yeah. Right. I love that. It was very unlike me. I did more unlikely roles. It was amazing.
Which is wonderful to show your diversity. A lot of people only know you from Happy Days. And as I was researching, digging back into these things, I was amazed, and I started to screen them. And just, you were terrific in all of them.
And then in my later years, I became Jewish.
Oh.
And on Brooklyn Bridge. And
yes,
I wasn't Jewish. And I thought, I wish I were Jewish. There was a woman in the market, and I could hear the way she was talking. I said, "Are you Jewish?" You know, at the groceries. She said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, I wish I were Jewish." And she staggered back. She staggered back. She said, "Nobody has ever said that to me in my whole life." So they sent me to a coach, but I would be so. I am always so interested in not what you're saying as much as like how you say that. Listen how you say that. I'm fascinated with people. I'm fascinated with all of us. We are all so different and fascinating. It's just fascinating.
When you were starting out, were you at that time fascinated by people and watching what they were doing?
Yes. Like I'm in the 3rd grade. There was a little girl and she talked with the most interesting sense of her. She talked me like this to her nose. And I just thought that was adorable. So I talked the same, I talked the same way. And I just said, well, the 2 of us were sent to a remedial speech class. She's still there. I snapped out of it.
Yeah, well, good. As soon as you said, "Why am I in this room with this person who can't talk?"
Not worth it. Yeah.
Well, in the early days of television, when you were going from show to show to show, were you happy with your agent, or how did you approach each of these things? Somebody said, "This is the role for you."
When I was about 25, and I would watch the industry, I would read the trades. We would read the trades every day. We don't anymore. Where are those trades?
They're on your phone now.
Was that it? I don't know. It occurred to me, I would see the same names, and I think this is about selling, not about acting. It's show business.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I already know how to act. That's why I got that. So I hired a press agent, and she was a wonderful woman named Barbara Best. She worked for Stanley Kramer, and she took me under her wing, and she would teach me, how can you teach somebody? But the essence of, we got to sell you. How are people going to know about you? And we took out ads, and she was constantly calling me and prodding me along and giving me ideas and selling. And now I'm so aware that advertising it's more than half of it, isn't it? So it's 80% of it.
So it's all about awareness.
Yeah,
as
right.
Obviously, people became aware of you because you were in the pilot with a different cast for Happy Days. It wasn't even called Happy Days. They cut it and aired it because they couldn't sell it on Love American Style.
That's right. Love in the Happy Days, it was called. But it was, and we made one episode on Love American Style, and then they said, "Oh, here's $1,000. This is a retainer. Go away, go away." And then in about a year, I was doing a play at the Globe Theater in San Diego. Somebody came to me. They said, "Oh, I see in the trades you're going to be doing they're going to redo the Happy Days."
Because you were doing the play and you hadn't been reading the trades every day.
No.
Well, it turned out to be great because you were everybody's favorite mom. And could you say, "Oh, Richie again"?
Oh, Richie. Oh, Howie. Oh, Howard. Oh, Howard.
It's so believable.
Oh, Arthur. Then I would say, "Oh, Arthur." Yes. "Oh, you're not eating." Things like that.
Marion, thank you for coming and
Thank
sharing.
you.
Woo! Thank you, Marion.
Yeah, she was great. What camaraderie they had on Happy Days.
What a endearing show that spawned so many notable people.
And it's still running, and I think it ran for
syndication.
11 years. It's running in syndication, of course, or however they call it these days. Maybe they don't call shows syndicated anymore. They just air them.
But whether you're here as a fan of The Lone Ranger, Rawhide, or Happy Days, we're glad that you could join us. And happy trails.
Happy trails, and thank you. We'll see you next time on A Word on Westerns.
If you enjoy what we do here, please take a moment to follow our show and share these interviews with your friends. You can also find A Word on Westerns on Patreon, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you, and see you next week on A Word on Westerns. A Word on Westerns is produced and hosted by Rob and RJ Word. Edited by Alex Lockett and Bohr and Ebor Dro. Location audio is provided by Richard Reagan. Sound design by Alex Lockett. A Word on Westerns theme song was composed by Karel Pasoda with additional arrangements by Shipwreck Music and RJ Word.